At my engagement party, I was shocked when my fiancé arrived with another girl, and a huge fight broke out that ended with me walking away from the event completely. I had been preparing for that day for weeks. The white dress I had chosen. Carefully, the hall decorated with flowers and glowing candles, the tables filled with food, and the soft music playing in the background, everything was perfect. Or at least, that's what I thought. I sat surrounded by my family and friends, receiving congratulations with a wide smile. My heart was racing with excitement and nerves. In my mind, I kept repeating, "This is it. Today, a new chapter of my life begins. Today, everyone will witness our love." But what I never expected was that this night, which was supposed to be the happiest of my life, would turn into a nightmare in the blink of an eye. While I was greeting a relative, I heard whispers spreading across the room. Confused, I turned toward the entrance. That's when I saw him, my fiancé. He stood there in his elegant suit, looking calm and collected. But what shook me to my core wasn't him. It was the girl walking confidently by his side. She was dressed in a striking red gown, her head held high with an expression that screamed arrogance, and then I noticed it. He was holding her hand. My stomach dropped. A heavy silence filled the hall. Eyes darted from me to him to her. The whispers grew louder. Who is she? Why is she here? What's happening? I froze in place, my body, refusing to move. Inside me, a storm of emotions raged, confusion, anger, fear, and the sharp sting of betrayal. He approached me, trying to act as though everything was normal. His voice was low, shaky. "Baby, let me explain." But before he could say anything more, she stepped closer, standing beside him with a smirk plastered on her face. That smirk. It wasn't just a smile. It was a challenge. A message. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere." I couldn't hold it in anymore. My voice, trembling yet loud enough for everyone to hear, cut through the silence. "Who is she? And why did you bring her to our engagement party?" The hall went dead silent. Even the music stopped. Some guests looked away in embarrassment. Others whispered frantically while many stared, waiting for the explosion. My fiancé's face changed, panic flickering in his eyes as he stuttered, struggling to find words. But every excuse he tried to form sounded empty. And then, as if to fuel the fire, she gently placed her hand on his shoulder, her smirk growing wider. Inside me, the chaos grew. My pride told me not to cry. My anger pushed me to scream. And somewhere in between, my heart was breaking into pieces. Family. Members began moving closer, some trying to calm me down, others glaring at him in disbelief. But in that moment, surrounded by whispers, stares, and judgmental eyes, I stood frozen, asking myself one question. Was this really happening, or was I trapped in the worst nightmare of my life? The silence after my question felt unbearable. Every pair of eyes in the hall was locked on us. My chest tightened as I waited for him to speak, but all he did was stammer, his lips moving without forming any clear words. The room was suffocating with tension, and yet that girl, standing proudly at his side, seemed almost entertained by my pain. She tilted her head slightly, her smirk growing sharper as she looked straight at me, as if to say, "You've already lost." That look alone was enough to send a surge of rage through my veins. I stepped closer to him, refusing to let the humiliation consume me. My voice was louder now, trembling with fury. "Answer me! Who is she? Why is she here? Do you realize what you've just done?" The crowd stirred. My aunt gasped loudly. A cousin muttered, "This is insane." My father's face darkened with anger, while my mother sat frozen, her hands gripping the edge of the table so tightly that her knuckles turned white. He finally opened his mouth, his voice weak, barely audible. "She's just a friend. I didn't mean for this to... Friend? I cut him off sharply, my voice echoing through the hall. Friends don't walk hand in hand into their so-called fiancé's engagement party. Friends don't look at me the way she's looking. Right now, gasps spread around the room. Some guests shook their heads in disbelief, while others leaned closer, whispering, feeding the fire. The girl finally spoke, her tone dripping with arrogance. Maybe you should calm down. You're overreacting. My blood boiled. The audacity in her voice sent shivers down my spine. Calm down? On my engagement night? With her clinging to my fiancé's arm? I turned to him again, my eyes burning with anger and tears threatening to fall. Is this what you think of me? That I'll just stay quiet while you humiliate me in front of everyone? He reached out as if to touch my hand, but I pulled away instantly. His face was pale, desperate, yet he still couldn't find the courage to give a real answer. Every second of his silence felt like a dagger cutting deeper into my chest. The guests were no longer just watching. They were reacting. Some of his relatives rushed forward, trying to shield him from the storm, telling me to lower my voice, begging me to not make a scene. But how could I not? How could I stay quiet when my entire world was collapsing before my eyes? My best friend stepped beside me, holding my arm, whispering, "Don't let them break you. Stay strong." Her presence was the only thing keeping me from falling apart completely. But then, the girl leaned in closer to him, resting her hand on his chest with a possessive gesture that made my stomach churn. She said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "If she can't handle the truth, maybe she doesn't deserve you." The hall erupted. Voices rose, people arguing, some defending me, others defending him. My father stood up, his voice booming, demanding an explanation. My mother was in tears, begging me to step outside while his family desperately tried to control the situation. And me? I stood there, shaking, my heart racing, trapped between the urge to scream at the top of my lungs and the fear of what this really meant for my future. The chaos inside the hall was unlike anything I had ever witnessed. My engagement party, which was supposed to be a night of celebration, had turned into a battlefield. Guests stood from their seats, some raising their voices, others trying to calm things down. But the louder they spoke, the more uncontrollable the scene became. My father stepped forward, his voice commanding attention. "This is unacceptable. Explain yourself right now." His tone shook the entire room, silencing some of the whispers. But my fiancé still stood frozen, his eyes darting between me, the girl, and the angry crowd around us. He looked like a man cornered, unable to escape, unable to confess. The girl, however, showed no hesitation. She lifted her chin defiantly, speaking loud enough for everyone to hear. "She doesn't deserve this kind of reaction. He doesn't belong to her if he doesn't want to." Gasps filled the hall. My mother covered her mouth in disbelief, tears spilling down her cheeks. My younger brother muttered angrily under his breath, ready to step forward. But one of my uncles held him back. I could feel every pair of eyes drilling into me, waiting for my reaction. My hands trembled, my whole body shook with rage and humiliation, but I refused to collapse. I clenched my fists and took a deep breath, forcing myself to stand tall. I turned to him once more, my voice steady but sharp. "You have one chance to speak. One chance to tell me the truth in front of everyone here. Who is she, and why is she standing by your side on our engagement night?" The silence that followed was deafening. My heart pounded in my chest so loudly that I thought everyone could hear it. He opened his mouth, but once again, no words came out. His hesitation was worse than any answer he could have given. Whispers turned into open comments. "This is shameful. He should be honest. She doesn't deserve this." On the other side of the hall, his relatives grew defensive. One of his cousins raised his voice at my father. "You're embarrassing him. This should be dealt with privately." My father shot him a furious look. "Privately? While he parades another woman into my daughter's engagement party, the shouting escalated. People moved between the families, trying to separate them, but the tension only grew. Tables were being pushed, chairs scraped loudly against the floor, and the atmosphere became suffocating. And through all of this, the girl remained calm, almost smug. She placed her arm around his as if to claim him publicly, her eyes never leaving mine. That look, it was as if she enjoyed my pain, feeding off the spectacle. My best friend squeezed my hand tighter, whispering, "Don't let her win. Don't. Break here." But inside me, my world was spinning. I felt like the ground beneath me was crumbling, like everything I had believed about this relationship had been a lie. The shame of being humiliated in front of everyone I loved pressed down on me like a weight I could barely carry, and yet something inside me refused to fall apart. Not yet. Not in front of them. Not in front of her. The shouting grew louder, emotions boiling over, and I stood there in the middle of it all, caught between the chaos of my family, his family, the whispers of the guests, and the crushing silence of the man who once promised me forever. The shouting, the whispers, the chaos. It all blurred together. I stood in the center of the hall, my engagement party collapsing around me, while the man I thought I knew stood frozen, unable to defend me, unable to even speak. My father finally turned to him, his voice like thunder. "You don't deserve my daughter, not after this disgrace." My mother was in tears, shaking her head in disbelief. My friends gathered behind me, their presence a shield against the humiliation. But the weight of betrayal still pressed heavily on my chest. I looked at him one last time, searching his face for an answer, for any sign of the man I thought I loved. But all I saw was guilt and weakness. The silence he gave me was louder than any confession. Then the girl tightened her grip on his arm, her smirk returning, as if she had already won. That was the final blow. I took a deep breath, wiped the tears from my face, and lifted my chin. My voice was steady, though my heart was breaking into pieces. "You've made your choice tonight, and I'm making mine." Gasps filled the room as I turned away from him. I walked through the crowd, my heels echoing on the floor, my white dress trailing behind me like a ghost of the night that was supposed to be mine. Guests stepped aside silently, their eyes filled with pity, shock, and respect. I didn't look back. Not once. The moment I stepped out of the hall, the noise faded behind me, replaced by the quiet night air. Tears rolled freely down my cheeks, but there was strength in each step I took. That night, I realized something I should have known all along. I would rather walk away with my dignity than stay chained to a man who betrayed me in front of the world. The engagement was over. But my life, my story, was far from ending. And so, our story comes to an end today. But in the world of Max Fables, every tale carries a lesson and leaves an impact. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you won't miss our upcoming tales. Here, where stories come to life.